Welcome back to the Chill Sounds and Breakdowns podcast, hosted right here out of the rail, and we're on episode 128. 128. I counted really fast.
That was quick.
Yeah, that was pretty quick. It's one of my skills. But I'm excited because today we have the band that actually plays the new intro to like the podcast, which I was super excited to let me do it. But today we have the boys from Adrift. What's going on? What's going on? Trey, Josh. Last night. You're coming off of playing a show last night, right?
Yeah.
So how was that the first time you guys have played like an emo night?
Yeah, it was the first time.
How was that experience?
An experience, to say the least. No, it was really fun, actually. I had a blast.
This was your first time like at the venue itself, because you were talking about how like...
It was all new. Every bit of it was new. It was so interesting to me, just like the whole emo night aesthetic and the way that they do things.
Yeah.
And then also just like the cool, like everybody can just go wherever they want and enjoy whatever they want.
It's super interesting when I guess I never like really paid attention to those extra rooms, I guess, until they had one of these things. And I'm like, this is really weird. Like, it's just like 3 adjacent rooms that you can't get to walk through. But so that's cool. But this is like really just a podcast for me to like kind of just get to know a little bit more like about the band. That's kind of what I like about these. It's like, I play it off as me like, I want to show off like bands, but really I just want to like be nosy and find
obviously.
I want to start. I did get a chance to talk to Trey a little bit, and we were talking about like kind of the origins. But this is a little bit like on your brainchild kind of side. But so let's start there. Like where in the scene were you when you decided to kind of start this project?
So I had just moved to Texas from Florida. That's actually how we met, was in the scene in Florida together, and we just both ended up in Texas, and it kind of was a happy accident.
Wow.
But I had just moved here. I was writing for another band called The Great Line that was kind of it started out as just hey, do you want to come play this music with us? And like, yeah, sure. Like, I don't know, like it wasn't really my thing. But they brought me in, and then kind of like after I joined and we like kind of got some steam going, everybody was like, oh, well, I guess we don't really want to do this. Like, yeah, that's what I said too. I was like, cool. So it was just me and my buddy Ryan just writing, and I would just like go over to his apartment all the time and, get off work at 10 or 11 and then be there till like 2, 3 in the morning, just writing songs.
Wow.
So that's kind of where I got the bug for it.
To write, yeah.
To write for like in this style and everything. And that was kind of the genesis of it. And then as time passed, I really got the motivation to write and do the melodic hardcore thing. And everybody else was kind of like, yeah, like that's cool. It's not really what we want to do. And it just, over time, became just me. Like I was just writing stuff. So it really kind of goes all the way back to what Set Adrift is now, kind of started in like 2017, 2018.
Okay. You kind of have to, unfortunately, like weed those people out. So if people are like, I'm not interested, like, or like maybe half-assing it to you, it's like, okay, cool, like I don't want to do this. Especially I think with the way that you've already experienced, getting to something you didn't like and then people just bailing when like, oh, we're finally kind of getting going.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's cool that you just kind of kept at it. It's like, well, fuck it, like I'm just gonna write it myself, for anything. But from what I can tell, at least the band and the iteration it is now, like feels like it's found the right like people, the right team to be in it, because it just feels like it's so cohesive as a whole, like performance wise, writing wise, like it all just feels really put together with everybody you have. Who comes next, like as far as like the band?
So my best friend Taylor, who's also from Florida, he and I played in bands together.
It's a Florida takeover.
We're an invasive species. He literally moved up here to do the band with me. Like he had been kind of looking for a reason to get out of Florida.
We all are.
As we all did. And so he and I were like living together for a little while. So like he was much more involved in everything. And eventually, like he and I found our friend Andrew Milbanks, because Taylor did some fill-in work for one of his old bands, and that became like the core group that put everything together in 2019.
Okay.
And we were like really gearing up to start doing stuff, and then the pandemic hit.
Can't realize it was 2019.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Like the three of us, we were like in the jam space, like workshopping songs and kind of putting everything together, and then COVID hit, so we didn't have anything. Our friend Cody Hambright was going to be our original vocalist.
Oh, really? The Dispo, right?
Yeah.
Old Dispo vocalist. Crazy.
So he did the vocals on the first 2 tracks that we released when it was still technically a studio project.
Okay.
And then he got a big boy job, and took off and everything with his career. So we hit up Josh, because I think at one point I had like messaged you or something. It was just like, hey, hypothetically, if we eventually need somebody because we want to take this like to the next step and like be a live band and stuff like that. And I remember he's like, absolutely, yeah. What?
Well, when he sent me the tracks, I was like, oh yeah, I've been wanting to do
I got some shit for you.
Yeah, I was like, I've been wanting to do this for a minute. And he's like, all right, well, we're waiting to hear back from our buddy. And then I was like, cool. And I was like, oh, I guess it's over. And then like later, like it was a few months later, and you're like, we're calling you up to the ranks. And I was like, yes,
we're back.
we're back.
Yeah.
So cool. Okay, so it kind of just all like kind of. I mean, the making it through the pandemic with the same like idea and people like still being a part of it like is a big deal. But there's so many bands like didn't make that, and it sucks that you were like literally gearing up for it and like, oh, it's about to happen, and then it's just fucking. Well, it can't now.
See, I was in a band at the time before the pandemic that was taking off, and then the pandemic did not do well for us, and then we fell flat. So to even think that you go into the pandemic like that and then make it out is pretty nuts.
But I think it, I was upset about it at the time, but I think it all worked out the way it was supposed to, because we everything kind of fell into place in terms of all of our like motivations aligning, and creatively. That's how we found Jacob, because I'd known him for a while, and he just happened to be available after the pandemic in a way that he wasn't before. So like, and he like he's a just monster guitar player.
Definitely, yeah.
I can write something and be like, "What do you think of this?" And he goes, "Oh, yeah, I really like that." And then plays it better. Like, yeah, me too.
It's basically the same,
played that exact same thing.
That's exactly what I played. I mean, like if you want to do it that way, like that's fine, I guess. Like
you're his muse, man.
Yeah.
But I mean, in the band terms, that's like what you want. Like that's the sweet spot. Like literally, you come up with someone comes up with not necessarily something better, but something where you're like, holy shit, like where you think it's better, where you're like, that's cool shit. Like you want other band members to have that type of contribution where they add something and you're really fucking excited about it, not just like, okay, I guess we can do that, or where you feel like you want to be hard-headed enough to be like, no, we're fucking doing my thing, or like that's kind of what you want. And I know like I've ran into that where like when I was in a band where initially like everything was butting heads, like and not even the entire band, it was just our 2 guitar players who were writers who just could not get it together.
Players.
Yeah
Always.
It's an ego thing.
Well,
I guess.
I don't ever want to be the most talented member of the band. Like I learned that like pretty early when I was playing. Like I want to be surrounded by people that are going to push me. Like you're like, no danger of that there, buddy.
No comment. No comment.
I just started shit. Is that what he said?
But like being around more talented musicians makes you better.
Yeah. I think in a lot of like avenues, like that's the way you should kind of strive. It's I don't know where the fuck I've heard it. Probably a bunch of sitcoms because I always get my advice from that. But it's like you don't want to be the smartest person in the room kind of thing. Where it's like you want to be around people who are gonna push you and elevate you to be better.
Well, you're a product of the people you surround yourself with. I mean, that's in all things, career, music, art.
It's kind of weird how stubborn, like I was always about that, and I'm like, no, like I decide, like how am I, and then like I change the people I hang out with, like, oh shit, like I'm doing a lot better.
Like, whoa, wait, there's more?
Yeah, like, oh, okay, like these people do cool shit. Which again, it's one of the reasons why I like doing this shit, because it's always surrounded by people who are like doing really cool stuff, and I'm like, all right, cool, let's do cool things.
Yeah.
Okay, so it all kind of came together like it's supposed to, I mean, that's kind of what it feels like with the Origin band from 2017 inception. Now we're entering 2025, and I feel like you guys have a nice like foothold like in like what the band is going to be and what it is like as far as right now. You've released like really how many songs now? Like it's Six or seven?
Yeah.
2, 4, 6, 7.
Seven. And they've all, at least to my knowledge and what I can see, like have been very well received. And like every time I see them played at the shows, they're like very emotional. I see like new people seeing, you know, you guys, you're one of the bands that I do walk away. I mean, because we've worked with y'all with NoiseROT and have shows, but where people who are seeing you for the first time walk out and like really like connecting with you, with the band itself. I mean, a lot of it has to be like that type of music definitely always invokes like a very strong like emotional response. Sure. Even the first time like that I saw you, like I definitely went through that. And I was like, I think I was supposed to be taking pictures, and I'm just like sitting there a few times, like, man, like I was like, okay, like, cool. But yeah, is that something you guys have seen in in like the reception of people that have come up to you and talk to you? Like, is that something you guys get a lot?
Yeah, we do, honestly. Like, even last night, like, there was a time, there's a song that I always have an issue getting through because I'm, like, very emotional about it. And even, like, somebody's like, can I give you a hug? They're like, I want to be here for you. And I was like, wow, like, this is really cool. But, like, we've had a lot of people, like, you know, we talk about suicide, we talk about loss, we talk about, you know, just a, you know, grand scheme of things that, you know, life just throws at you. And we try to talk about that on stage to make sure that we do connect with our audience and, you know, give them a safe place as well. And so that's a huge goal of mine personally. And so anytime that somebody's like, hey, man, like, thank you or whatever, like, that's just like, I don't even care if you like the music or not. Just like, I want you to have a place where you can just soak into that. So there's a goal.
Yeah. And especially like, I guess as like the front, like, person of the band, it's like that's who people are looking for most of the time, like to see it. But and it's one thing, and I'll bring it up because I've been to shows and seen bands where they have the whole like it feels staged, that part of it where they're like talking about it. But I've also been to ones, again, yours included, where I'm like, it feels like a natural thing. It does feel welcoming. It doesn't feel like putting on some sort of thing. Like it feels genuinely where I like it touches like the person who's there, like it feels really emotional, which again goes with the performance, goes with the actual like song and like lyrics of this music. But yeah, like the live performances have always offered like that type of connection, because I've had those moments where bands where I'm like, I don't even really like you're saying, like I don't even care if you like the music. I've had bands where I'm like, this is okay, but like the performance itself like was invigorating, like it was like a moment, you know what I mean? And I feel like people go out to live shows like really like that's what they're going after, you know, to lose. But you guys do a really good job.
That's a huge philosophy for me, because like I played in the scene for a really long time, and for the longest time I see these bands, I'm like, you know, I could listen to this on Spotify or whatever, or your chosen provider of music, but I was like, and I can get like the same experience, and it's like I think it's super important to create like that live. It's entertainment at the end of the day. Like people are coming maybe to see you, but they're also just there to like escape whatever reality, or you know, just go see some fun music, right? And so it's like, how can you know, bring that entertainment there and like make it like, why would I go see this band live? It's like, well, because it's an experience, and so that's what I always want to make sure that we're leaving them with.
And it just amplifies it too. Like I was driving home from being out of town yesterday before the show, and I was listening to Enter Shikari, which is one of my favorites.
Oh, nice.
And honestly, like I've loved them for a long time, but seeing them live, like now when I'm listening to the songs, I'm thinking about the moments where Rao's like jumping around on stage, like throwing the mic stand. And it's like a feedback loop of the individual moment I had with the record and then the individual moment that I had at the show that's just a little bit different, but it enhances, and they kind of work together really well. And like that elevated them for me beyond just a band that I like really like and I listen to, that now like every time they're here I go see them. Yeah, because I know it's going to be.
Don't miss that.
It's going to be awesome.
They're so fucking huge. I haven't seen them in recent. Actually, I haven't ever since the first. I saw them once.
Yeah,
but this was like, I think when I first learned about them, when like the songs that everybody knows, like sorry you're not a winner, whatever that record. What does it take to the skies record? But then I remember following up with them years later, and I'm like, holy shit, they write some fucking amazing music.
Yeah, they're so good.
And they're so like consistently fucking huge, like records. Like these records are amazing. And I'm just like, and I always beat myself up because I'm like, why do I keep like not like sticking to this? Like, and I'm scatterbrained as fuck, so I get it. But every time I listen, I'm like, they're so fucking good. And then like you see like their shows like overseas, like I always say in Europe and stuff, and they're like gigantic,
huge,
fucking
like headlining
shows.
Reading and stuff.
Yeah. Which and then you're like, yeah, this makes sense. You need that's how way you should be being recognized. I feel like they. Not as bad, but they get that. What is it? Have you seen people like talking about the whole Robbie Williams shit? That movie that just came out. Have you seen? It's a movie like where the guy like is a CGI monkey, but he's like a star from like Europe, and he's like super huge like over there, and nobody like in America like knows who he is.
Gotcha.
And I feel like they're not to that degree, but yeah, people are like they get received like so much like love over there. And then they come here, and they still do, but I feel like it's not what they deserve.
It's not the same.
No,
yeah,
for sure.
But I've talked to a few people like that have gone and played like overseas and been like in the culture, and it's just a different show culture like, over there than it is here. But no, they've always been super solid. But live shows, that's something that I love when bands put thought into that. Not even just it being elaborate, but like there's got to be a reason. Like again, like for these days, like I always like think about it this way: like you can do anything else. Like you can do nothing. Yeah. Like instead of going to the show, like it's very easy, like to do that. So why are people going to come see you? You know what I mean? Because like you're right, you can't just listen to the music like at home. Like if that's going to be like what you're listening to, I'm like, but if there's some sort of experience, something added to it, that's what people are looking for. You were talking about like people are trying to escape things like that. Do you think your mission is kind of like paying attention to that because it's kind of how you treated like shows and stuff like that?
Oh, absolutely.
For me, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's an escape for us. It's an escape for them. Like we're all together in this. Like we kind of want to build our own community within that too, you know? So yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Like even musically, I think that's what we wanted to create.
Okay.
Like when I was a kid, dealing with things that I thought life was so hard at 13.
It was, man,
but it is for a lot of people. Like and music was what helped me through when I didn't have like friends because we moved a lot. So I was kind of in this isolated system where it was just like me and my favorite artists. And so I, from a motivation standpoint, that's why I wanted to start writing music that was more interpersonal and more a way to connect with people to kind of repay that was given to me. And so if you have that as a record and you're just listening to it on your headphones and then going to a show too and having that be an even more expansive experience, like that's literally the point of this, is to have that community and place to belong and not feel like you're all on your own.
Do you have like a set of artists or records that you can kind of pinpoint to like that made that transition to where you're like, I want to write some more vulnerable, like honest stuff?
That's a great question.
Gosh.
That's a great question.
Yes.
As he ponders.
Yeah.
I do want to say that one of the worst things is a band that you love hearing the record and then you go see them live and you're like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
Never want that.
I mean, probably How We Wondrously Perish. Oh my gosh, I'm a bad fan. Beings in Ocean, their second record.
Okay.
Fake fan.
That was the first time that I remember listening to lyrics and going, this is how I want to help others to feel. Mm-hmm. Like that probably has some of the most meaningful and helpful lyrics for me personally, kind of in my journey and everything. Are We All the Same Distance Apart by Crooks? Just
so good,
phenomenal.
UK.
His writing is another UK band, and even Beings in Ocean.
UK
Crooks UK. Well, and that whole scene, like I'll go off on a tangent, but that scene where that everybody knows each other. Michael from Beings in Ocean was from that same scene. Departures from the UK was a big influence. I found them a little later, so I wouldn't necessarily say that they're like a kind of the genesis of it, but they reinforced that idea for me. I mean, if I want to take it all the way back to like when I was 13, Linkin Park was a band that I remember listening to and going like, man, like it's crazy that I'm not the only person feeling this way. Because especially, like I said, like when you move around a lot and you don't have a friend group that you like grow up with, and you're going through life with people, it's very isolating. And hearing it on a record and going, oh wow, like it's a simple idea, but going, now that I'm not the only one feeling that way, I can deal with it easier.
Yeah. Linkin Park was my introduction into anything. I guess they got to be mainstream in a way, but anything off like really the radio scene or something like that, because that's all I knew. Like all I knew was like listening to music that way. So that's kind of so all these like topics that you would hear like on the radio were very like generic, like for the most part. So I'm like, oh, like, but that was the first time like the lyrics of it was like really just vulnerable, like raw, like it was a different sort of concept for me, and I was like, oh, you can sing like sing about that stuff, or like you know, whatever music you make, like you can add like that sort of vulnerability to it. I have that, and I have like a Spanish artist that is like this old, like, I mean he's dead now, but this guy named Juan Gabriel. It's funny because it came up last podcast too, but it was a one moment I heard a song and I'm like, this shit is like very like heart, like on a sleeve type thing, and being just as real as possible. Like it's very over dramatic about heartbreak, but I'm like, yes, like that's how it feels. Like, you know, it's all this like world ending stuff, but in all these other different like avenues, different like topics, like Linkin Park definitely was one that I saw that way. I don't know if I related as much to lyrics, but like hearing people talk about that stuff like was like kind of more bringing awareness to like, oh, people feel like this way. You know what I mean?
Like other people are sad too.
Yeah.
Sadness is a universal thing. What?
That's crazy. It's crazy. It is real. But and I joke around this a lot, but I love sad music.
Yeah.
Way more than I love anything else. like I think it goes like sad and it's like angry and then like somewhere where there's like happy stuff.
Just happy stuff is elsewhere.
I feel like my fiance is definitely like the opposite. She brings that a lot. It's like, you like your sad boy shit, and I'm like, yes, because I know that. Like, and he's like, and I'm happy now, but I've never experienced like being happy with happy music. I guess if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You
Let
know?
me turn you on to the Wiggles. They kind of slap. Just saying.
Yeah, when I'm like really happy or like really excited about something, I'm listening to just like the heaviest, angriest music. Like I don't like. Not that I don't, you know, experience the full spectrum of emotions, but like I'm never the kind of angry that needs to listen to Spite.
Yeah.
Like I'm listening to, you know.
Wait, the band Spite?
The band Spite.
Okay. I wasn't sure if in Spite.
You know, like if I'm listening to IED, like I'm good. Like I'm having a good day. Like I'm just like,
getting it.
Yeah, it's fun. Like Kublai Khan, like I'm having a great time.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm never like that kind of angry now. Like if I'm sad, like listening to sad music is something that I do just kind of all the time. But there are definitely days where like I can't listen to That Being As an Ocean record, probably because I've put so much of myself into it, or it's taken so much of the negative from me, and kind of act like a. What is that? Like
a conduit?
A conduit. But a conduit moves from one thing to another, almost like a sin eater, where it's kind of like it's absorbing the negative from me so that I don't have to carry it. So if I go back to that record when I'm in the wrong headspace, it can actually kind of like reflect back on me.
Casey was like that for me.
Yeah.
Oh, that was
another one.
That was another one. I was waiting for you to say it, but I didn't hear it. So I was like, Casey's a big one for us too.
Yeah, like and all of it. I couldn't pick a single record from them, but they're definitely in that like inspirational to what we're trying to do for people. Like, they helped a lot, and I also think we would be remiss if we didn't mention the difference between Hell and Home.
Oh yes,
by Counterparts.
Oh, gotcha.
Oh yeah.
That's another one that's in there.
It's one of my favorite records of all time.
I
love that record so much.
So it's very similar, like to the records that you guys. Any ones that you're thinking of that?
Oh well, if I must.
Oh please.
Drops a list.
Parting the Sea Between Brightness and Me by Touche Amore is absolutely like. I mean, Jeremy's like one of my all-time, you know, most biggest inspirations as a writer, as a vocalist, as a frontman. Like, the man's incredible at what he does. If you have not seen Touche Amore, please do. They're so good. They're so good. But yeah, I mean, like definitely the Casey album, the Counter-Strike album, or counterparts, counterstrike,
Counterstrike.
counterpart.
We're having a LAN party here. Like, what's going on?
He's on dust. No, you did say something, and I was thinking about an album, and now I've lost it. Turnover, Peripheral Visions. Yeah, that album is a huge one for me too. I don't know. I'm all over the like genre pool with that kind of stuff. But yeah, those would, I would say those are the big ticket ones for me.
Nice. When you started, I guess going as a vocalist, did you kind of find your way in through writing or through like actual like vocals first?
Vocals first. I didn't focus on lyrics until later. I was more of like, hey, this is a vibe. I want to get into this vibe, and I just try to imitate what was happening. And actually, it wasn't actually until my first band in college that I actually really do. Because I originally started on drums.
Oh, okay.
I'm a terrible drummer, though. Not great. I played for like 6 years, and I never really got good. So, but no. So if you can't play the instrument, you do vocals, right? That's how that works.
Sure.
That's what I did.
So you get it. But yeah, it wasn't until I was in my first band. It was a metalcore band. My guitar player actually taught me how to do vocals. He's like, yeah, just project. And so we worked on that. And then it wasn't until then where him and I were sitting down and like really diving into it. And I was like, oh, there's so much more to this. And so at first, I've always had a really good guitar player like that would write with me, like Trey. I had Guy before, Sean, and then Donnie was the one before. And they've always been really good at helping in that area, like always having good input and back and forth. So I had, a lot of the stuff that I've written in my previous projects have been mostly me, but it's always been like with the help with the guitar player too. Feeling just overall emotion. And so it's definitely been a developing thing for me, for sure.
So when you coming into Set Adrift, I know you wrote a lot of like the initial because you would not only like write the instrumentation for the song, but you would go into the lyrics and stuff like that, and you do like some vocals like on some of it, but like you were the main writer for that. So that was something you're already used to, like kind of collaborating efforts.
Yeah,
so was that like an easy thing to kind of transition into?
I thought it was.
Yeah, it's pretty. I mean, first off, I'm like, he's like, hey, I already have lyrics. I was like, sick. All right, cool. Let's jump in. I was like, because he was like, we have this whole EP writing, and I was like, oh crap, I got to write for this. He goes, I got it. And he's like, if you want to write for this one, I was like, heck yeah. I was like, I have a subject matter. And then we edit from each other, like, hey, we have a documentation. We're like, hey, I wrote this. What do you feel? I was like, oh, let's change this. Because a lot of it, like, he's also like a way better writer. Like, as far as like language, like he's better at writing in that way. And then like, for me, it's more of like, how can we spin this to fit like vocal patterns and then like also how I think. And so the delivery of that is kind of how we work with that. So, but yeah, I mean, he's such a good writer that I'm like, okay, sweet. I'm cool with the subject matter. Let's just, tweak it a little bit and we're good.
Well, and Josh has that thing that I think any writer or producer wants in a vocalist. This is the we talk about our strengths section of the podcast.
We'll bash each other later.
Yeah. That Josh's ability to just deliver a line and make you believe it, which is like a thing that I don't know that you can be taught. I think you kind of just have to have that thing. Like that's like every great frontman that I've ever seen. That's a common thread that they're just like, yeah, like he can just deliver a line in a way that hits you. And I remember being in the studio recording those first like couple of songs, and our producer Dave and I, after a take, just being like, fuck. That was good. And so, like, even though, it is kind of like a collaborative writing experience, like, I feel like if we didn't talk about it, most people wouldn't know that Josh didn't write all the words because of the way he delivers everything. And
I still feel it.
Yeah.
Last night I actually was crying during Bloom.
Yeah.
I've never had that happen before.
Really?
Yeah, because that song did you write that one or was that Cody?
No. Bloom was actually the only one that Cody wrote with me.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
so I've never even met that man. So I'm like saying him, and I just got to a part where I was like, oh my God, I'm getting choked up right now. Because I don't know, they always feel like a new experience every time we do them. So, but yeah, I mean, you just got to feel it. So I appreciate that though.
In a writing dynamic like that, that's like you're saying, that is the perfect person. Someone is actually like, it's gonna feel real and genuine. Because like I don't know if it's like just the way over time, like the information I've gathered or whatever, but like I can feel and like pinpoint out like moments that aren't like real and genuine, and they put me off of stuff immediately.
Right.
I'm just like, oh, like I don't like this isn't real or whatever.
Yeah.
And no, for sure, like even like me seeing like the performances a few of the times, it feels like that like every time. Like it feels like what you're playing out there, what you're saying matters. You know what I mean? Like to you. You know what I mean? It is something real. And yeah, that's perfect. That's the delivery you want with like any of the bands that you're seeing. Like you want it, you want to feel like that same emotion that you felt whenever you heard that song. Like, it's like I want to be able to feel that from this person right now. Right. And it must be hard, especially like in your band, like with the subject matters you guys tackle, to do that. You know, every performance. Like, so it is something you're having to tap into. Have you guys found difficulty in that, in revisiting some of these subjects?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll get mine out of the way because I know yours is a little more involved.
Yeah, mine. So I have a hard time crying in general, which is weird. Like I don't really like. I feel these things, but like I never can like emote them. And I found this out in another band that I was in that I started writing about. Like my uncle who passed away, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna write this song about him. And then like we performed it at practice. I was like, I don't feel okay. And then we played it first time, and I didn't sing maybe half the song. I was freaking bawling my eyes out. And so the same thing kind of happened with our song Wake. And I've talked about this before, where like it's about a friend of mine that passed away. His name is Jack Jollo. Passed away in 2023, unfortunately unalived, or suicide. Can I say suicide? Okay, suicide. And I even went to his grave, and I was just like, I want to cry right now so bad. And we went to, you know, the song actually talks about that day pretty much, and about meeting all the people. And so I didn't get to, like, I felt it while I was there, but I didn't really get to like soak into it. And then finally when we start playing that, so every time we play that song, I'm like, I'm there. I'm like, it's really like cathartic, but also like, I don't know, it's very, very intense.
Yeah.
It is a cathartic experience when you're performing songs that were like a thing that you held in for a long time.
Yeah.
You know, there's a couple of moments in the set where like if I don't know, a lot of times I have so much going on like in my head, worried about like logistics and stuff, that like if I'm playing the song, sometimes it is purely just like I'm just playing the song, like I'm just locked in, trying to make sure that everything's working right. But occasionally, like if I get lost in it, it can be pretty tough.
Yeah. I've looked over you a couple times where I'm like seeing you feeling it.
And yeah, it's hard because a lot of, you know, the lyrics I wrote, you know, as if I'm saying the things to people that I am not going to get to say, whether they're not here or they don't want to listen or whatever. It's my way of kind of getting out the things that I felt like I needed to say. And so when I'm on stage with a microphone and I've got a band and I've got all this power behind me, I sometimes like I feel it, like it's just like all of this is just coming out, and it's like I'm getting to say it to a room full of people that may or may not understand, but they're still, you know, feeling and connecting with it, and it can be pretty emotional. The bridge in Rot is one that I'd say about half the time
and it gets hard.
It gets hard to to get through sometimes.
Do you feel like those moments will ever like does it ever cross your mind, be like, oh, maybe like I need to write something different at all?
No,
nope, that ain't changing.
No, because I mean, I feel like if I'm getting that emotionally into it, years removed from what I wrote, then I feel like I have something that is going to be transcendent enough to kind of put down into stone.
Okay.
Well said.
Just because it's difficult for me from time to time doesn't necessarily mean that like I get off stage and dwell about it still. And sometimes those emotive performances, even though it's I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is that even if I don't perform it perfectly because I'm getting emotional about it, that's still an experience, and goes back to what we were talking about earlier about the live show being a different kind of thing. Like I wasn't emotional about it necessarily on the record. Like I was making sure that I like hit it perfectly and was on the grid, you know.
Oh, he's meticulous.
Yeah.
And so like, you know, my delivery and everything was important, but I was also worried about, you know, 100 other things. Whereas in this moment with fans, like, you know, as close as you and I are, I'm not worried about everything. Suddenly it's just the words, and I'm thinking about it as I'm doing it. And as hard as it can be sometimes, I also think it's really special, and it's a thing that I don't think a lot of people get to experience.
Yeah, that's true.
On either side.
That's true.
Very true. When I was in a band, I have one song that I feel like I wrote in that way, where it was like the thing you hold on forever that you feel like you don't say enough, and even like it took writing that song to discover that I had an issue with all this stuff. You know what I mean? Because it's always like I'm fine, I'm okay, like or whatever, like just because to brush off the subject. But this was like the one where like, oh, I don't have to talk to anybody. It could just be here, like here every time, like and the whole experience, like the way I experienced this was like writing the song was me kind of admitting that like this is real, this is happening, and that's been me forever. Like if I don't say anything or I don't write it down, then it's not real. So this was my acknowledgement of it, and then recording it was this putting the right, I guess, sentiment and like power behind it, because I had time, because when you're in the studio, you have time to think and be like, this is how I need this to be said. And that's what I paid attention in that. And then performing it was like the last part of it, where it was just like, oh, this is where you get to expose that raw nerve in front of people, like you're admitting it, because even like on the record, like you put it out, but you don't have to talk to anybody ever about it if you ever want to.
You don't even have to listen to it.
You at all, you literally. And then performing it, it was like, okay, you're exposing it to all these people, and then the people that did, you know, it resonated with, and those people were like, then you can like have a discourse. I had like people like walking, because I mean, it was. Long story short, just about my dad, whatever. Never been typical, you know. It's a standard. But yeah, I would have like random people come up and be like, "Oh, I have like similar experience like this," and that was really the first time where I had that moment where it's like, "Oh shit!" Like this is the moment that I've had with bands. I'm like, "This is what I want." Like that was a song that made like turned it around. And be like, this is what I like about this shit, is creating this type of connection. Where like if it's one person, like it's one person, but that's a genuine moment that you have with like people.
It's worth all
connection.
of it.
Yeah, all worth all of it.
It's worth all of it. I love that.
Well, I don't even think about when I'm in the studio. I'm in the moment, so I'm not even thinking about like how raw it's going to be when I perform it.
You're not ready for it.
So when it happens, like I'm like kind of before we play, I'm kind of like running through the songs in my head, just like making sure I don't like forget anything, or if there's a part that I'm like worried about that I'm not going to nail. And sometimes I'm just like, golly.
That was a sad piece of shit.
But I think it's, you know, going back to your original question, I don't necessarily think that there's ever a moment where I'm like, you know, should I stop writing this way? I think honestly, more than anything, because we are the kind of people that, you know, if we're going to, you know, be advocating for like mental health and community and everything, if we're going to talk the talk, we also have to walk the walk. So like we are, you know, I say we, there's the collective, the royal we, you know, therapy, you know, talking through things, personal growth, you know, doing all of the work to not be, you know, held down by all the things that we go through. And so the only conscious thought I remember having recently is, gosh, what if I heal from all this? What am I going to even want to write anymore? Like what am I going to do?
Is there an end?
Is there an end? Like, but then I think about like all these bands that are super inspirational to me, that the frontmen or the writers are, you know, happily married with kids, and the Wonder Years is a good example. It's like it's like
Soupy.
That man's happy.
Yeah, he's
you wouldn't know.
Like, are you sure? No.
You know another one I was thinking about earlier that we forgot to mention? As piano becomes the teeth. Pianos become the teeth.
Yeah.
That's also one of those bands that's just like every time I've seen them, I'm like, God, this guy's going through it.
Yeah.
But sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
Fine.
But yeah, that is kind of weird, because I recently got asked to write a song, and they gave me a subject, so it was kind of easy. But then they sent me another one, and they're like, oh, on this one, I had posted something, because like right now I feel like, oh, like I'm pretty like happy, you know what I mean? Like so it's, and again, my go-to bucket is writing like sad stuff because it's what I love.
Right.
but those, I mean, problems don't go away. Like,
Right.
you know, you're always dealing with stuff. And I remember, like, I had a moment. I posted like some video where it was like this thing. It's my constant struggle, and that's the thing. Like, I'm always working through. It's the idea of being enough or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And again, you have people like it's you. I get caught off guard sometimes. Where like again, if I'm slipping, I'm not practicing like the right things I'm supposed to. Where I'm like, yeah, like I don't have people that love me. It's fucking crazy. And it's for a few seconds. I'm like, you're like, I don't try not to call myself an idiot, but I do sometimes.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, yeah, like I literally do like have a shit ton of that. But it does catch me up. But I wrote something about that, and then he sent me a song. He's like, I want you to write a song. Like I sent you one, I made one. He's like, but I want that video you made. Like that's what I want in this. And I'm like, oh shit, I got to dip back into that well. And it wasn't as easy like as I really thought it was. Like, oh, like it's kind of hard to really go back into that moment. And I'm like worried about like, okay, make sure you're all right before you start like, and making sure like I'm writing in it out of like a genuine way, not just like, oh, it's got to be like super sad, but it feels more of like of that, like again, creating like that awareness where like, yes, this shit happens, but there's ways out of it, and it's kind of like my take that I'm going to take into that song. Because that's where I'm at, you know what I mean? I'm not stuck, because I think I used to, I mean, one of the toxic things I used to do was I would dwell on feeling that way, because it was when I got to be like super relatable on those like dark records that I would listen to, not even dark records, just sad stuff. I'd want to stay there, because then that's what I understood.
It's comfortable.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, I can just do this. Or I came up with it's like, oh, well, I feel this way because of this. Or I have an excuse now, so I can stay here now because there's a reason, you know what I mean? Versus, again, trying to, like, what if I heal from this, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, what if, you know, that's not a bad thing. Like, that should be something everyone's striving to do.
No,
you know, like, to be better.
And it is a positive, and that's that's what we're working for. Like, anyone that's listening to our music and relating, we don't want them to stay there. Mm-hmm. That's supposed to be more like if you're on the edge, we want to keep you here.
Yeah. Yeah. Or it's like a pit stop too, you know?
Yeah, like it's easier to tackle something as, you know, monumental as trying to heal through trauma or heal from things when you don't feel like you're on your own. But the unspoken is, well, you should heal. Yeah. Like you should better yourself. And, you know, I don't necessarily think that it, like, really at the end of the day, it's kind of like that. It's like what you were saying, where it's just a split second, like oh gosh, like what if I don't have anything to write about? I'll always have something to write about.
Yeah.
But
stay sad.
Honestly, the Ghost Inside is like the kings of that.
Yeah.
Like, because they, you know, will have songs that are sad, but they always like really kind of twist it, at least at the end, if not the whole song, about being empowered to be able to do something about it. And so I think that that's probably, you know, after this initial like wave of I'm just getting stuff out, like, you know, the next phase being more on the like, yeah, it's here, like you're going through it, but it'll be okay. Like we'll get through it together. I think right now it's a little more implied.
Yeah.
But nobody stays in that space forever. And so I think that as we progress as a band and as people, it'll kind of naturally move too.
Yeah, that should be like the natural progression. Do you think, I guess moving on to like what the band has been doing, we got into it a little bit, but so you released your latest single was Regret, which is the song that we picked, which is, I swear, like I heard, I think I talked about this already, but I was debating, like I was like, I'm making a list like of songs, and I'm like, maybe I'll have people vote, like I don't know how to pick or this and that, and I heard Regret live like at Tulips, and I'm just like, I need that. I'm like, that's not out. I go, that's not out. I go, when is? And I was literally hoping in my head, I'm like, if this is like a demo and it's like gonna be like a long time before it's out, and I'm like, whatever. And then I think I initially talked to Taylor, and he was like, oh no, that's literally the song everybody sends to everybody. like everybody has heard this. Like everybody who knows like Sedative has heard this already. It's like, so yeah. And then I talked to you. You're like, yeah, for sure. And I'm like, I was like, this has got to be it. Like it's got to be like the one.
We're so honored by that. Yeah. That's so awesome.
When
you showed us the intro, like teaser, I was like, yo, this is kind of better than like what we put together. Like, this is so sick. Shout
out. That was Alinea, so Daniel Hembree. So cool. All in the same little group. We're all posting it now. He's amazing, but I literally was like, I want some fucking cool shit. Like he's like, okay, I got you. And like he was so fast. I think it was like a week, and he brought me like
Wow.
the first like
he's a
idea
wizard.
back. And I'm like, this is amazing. Like, this is perfect. Which you guys released a music video for that too. Is end of the year on a single. What is the plan like right now for 2025?
So that was we wanted to put one last thing out before the end of the year because we didn't want to just end on an end cap. You know, putting out the EP, we didn't want that to like the subconscious to be like, okay, cool, so like they're done for a little while. We're like, no, we're not done.
No, that's the,
and so
we're halfway there.
You know, we've got another few songs that we're going to be putting out, and then putting it together collectively. You know, basically 2 EPs that go together that are a record. And the next one is going to be out
February.
Sometime
in February.
mid to late February.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're really excited about that. I mean, these are kind of the last few of the ones that I had been writing for a long time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're kind of coming up on the close of this first like phase of things, and we're already writing for phase 2.
Yeah, we're already pretty deep already.
Yeah, we should be recording probably April.
Oh
for
wow. I think
the
that's
next step.
That sounds like an awesome like move because like, again, it feels like 7 songs, but it feels like I've always been listening to like this band for like, you know, I think 2023 was the first single, right?
Narcissus and Bloom.
Yeah, Narcissus and Bloom came out in February of 23. Yeah,
23, right?
Yep.
But I feel like because of like the release schedule and everything, like there's been something like new to listen to. Feels like right cycle. Yeah,
He's smart. Dude.
It's
just killing it.
The industry side I can't stand.
Yeah.
But I can't argue with the fact that it's created that perception that is just always kind of there, and by the time you're kind of going like, oh yeah, I think I'm done with this one, like we pull you right back in.
Yeah.
So it's been tough. It's a lot of work to keep it that consistent. But the guys have been absolute troopers about everything, and every time I'm like, all right, guys, we gotta do this now. And they're like, yeah. didn't we just finish doing that? Like, yep, never stops.
No, don't stop, never stop.
But it really doesn't stop. You know, like as a band, like if. Again, whatever you want to do with it, like if you want to take it and even like tour or whatever your goals are, like it is work, but it's work that like, I mean, if you're at a job you hate and you're doing work, you're like, yeah, fuck this. But if you're doing something like, I fucking love this, I'm like, so it might still suck like for the time being, or like it might be like, oh, it's time consuming. Like I'm staying up super fucking late. Right. I have to go. Like, I mean, like just for the show last night, like you live in Austin, right?
Yeah.
So you're like driving up, you know, to play a show and then like headed back, you know, the next day. So it's all like this.
He was
work.
driving from Memphis.
Yeah, I was in Memphis.
True, you were like,
you
were. Where were you? Like, you went somewhere.
He was in Memphis.
Yeah, I was in Memphis. So I drove out there Thursday, and then I was there Friday, and then drove back Saturday.
Shit.
I was out there with family and dropped my sisters off at their car, and then drove
literally just straight to the venue.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, like when you're putting in the work for something you actually like care about, like you're putting your everything and heart into, like it. There's a reason, like you have a reason, and it makes sense, and you know why, like you have to keep working it. And then when you slack off, at least if you're like me, like I feel guilty, like when I don't like put in the right amount of work. I'm like, you can't do that, like because you care about this. You know what I mean? Like it feels like because like you realize this thing merits like that hard work. Like you want to push it, and like there's reasons why people like do this. But I think it comes through like in what you guys do and like performances, releases, like that. And visuals and all the stuff that you guys do, like you embody like this, the right feeling from a band that you want to get, like when you're seeing a band live.
Yeah,
like,
that's awesome.
Seeing a band live, meeting them, this is like, okay, they love this. You know what I mean?
Thanks,
they want to do this.
We actually hate it. We
Yeah.
don't want anything to
This
do
here
with it.
exclusive.
Yeah.
We are all setting adrift from each other. This is a random question. The little slashes, just for style, was there a reason?
I thought it looked cool.
It does look cool. It does. No, it does.
I never actually asked the question, but that's funny.
I remember reading one time that Trent Reznor picked the name 9 Inch Nails because he thought it looked good in print. And like that, their little logo, it was just like a good branding thing. And I remember being like, it's okay to just do stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I've never been a fan, like, since, like, I came from, like, playing in, like, death metal bands and like, like tech death stuff where the logo is everything. Like, if you don't have a sick logo, like, nobody wants to listen to your record. Yeah. And coming over here, like, I wanted this to be a little more mature, I guess, in the way we presented it, but not saying that death metal logos aren't mature, because we have a death metal logo.
We have a death metal logo.
Like, because I can't get away from that.
Yeah.
Like, I still wanted it to be like a logo or like a recognizable thing. And so, like, that's what my background is in marketing and branding and stuff. So when we were kind of putting all of this together, that was a big thing, is I wanted to make sure that everything had consistent connectivity between all the kind of visuals that we do, and having that little double slash or the S//AD thing that we could use as like an alternate logo and stuff like that. It just kind of, I would love to say that I Palpatine the whole thing to work so well. I think that I just like saw it and it looked cool and I just ran with it, and it's happened to work like really, really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of evolved on its own, which is really cool.
Well, and like Taylor came up with the SAD thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because so the original iteration of the branding was just the S-A, and my sister works in mental health, but specifically in like human trafficking stuff. And she was like, "Hey, I know it's not this." But SA stands for something in mental health and on the internet that I think maybe you're not intending.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, no.
We had a couple people point it out. We were like, oh, no.
I was like, oh, man, I put that on a hat already.
Yeah.
And Taylor, like, without missing a beat, was like, what if we just add the D? Because then it says sad and we're sad. I'm like,
it was right there the whole
so
time.
good. Like, how did I miss that?
It was right there the whole time.
God, yeah. I'm saying that's why you need to surround yourself with people. Again, like even like just opening ideas, like that's. I mean, I'm gonna say like, yeah, it's a collaborative, but it is like someone pointed out something. It's clear because sometimes you're too stuck to it, and then you're like, oh man, I just need someone to be like, yeah, this is easy. Like,
doing it by yourself is the death of creativity. I mean, it has a shelf life.
Yeah.
Like if you are trying to do something like all on your own, like I don't understand how some solo artists do it outside of like just going and working with different writers and producers, because you can have an idea and you think it's good, but then like if somebody else comes in and puts their own kind of spin on it or adds their flavor, it adds legitimacy to what you're doing, because you're like, oh cool, well it's good enough for them to want to add something to it or them to have ideas to it. But it also just generally makes things better when it's not just one person funneling absolutely everything.
You need honest people too.
Yeah,
honest people. Yeah.
I have a solo project myself, and I'm like, I'll send this over. Like I send over a song to somebody, and I'm like, hey, you know, or my engineer, and I'm like, how's this sound? He's like, I was like,
it's just a voice note back.
Yeah, he's like, can you do this one part again? And I was like, all right, I'll just, we got it.
Can you do it again, but not bad?
But it's so fucking essential. It's so essential to have just people be like, hey, just do it. And it's most of the time it's just like, try that again or try something different. Like it's, if as long as you have to like be open to that and not be as defensive, be like, because again, like learning to like songwrite, I feel like I was that a lot earlier on, but I ran into the fact that nobody would edit my shit, and then I'm like, and so I'm like, after the fact, now I look back and I'm like, somebody should have caught like this, like early on or whatever.
Not me.
Not me. Like, I thought it was good. And
he's really good at that. Like when we're in the studio, dude, he's always like, hey, you did this thing like you did up here. You need to like, and he'll like visually make it to where you're like, oh. Yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying.
Well, and I'd be an idiot if I didn't mention that our friend Dave that produced and recorded everything, like he's like the sixth member.
Yeah.
Like his input and his like producer brain is just ridiculous. Like, I mean, I have demo versions.
Redo it.
Yeah.
So you need like, hey, how was that, Dave? Redo it.
Yeah. but it's in a way that's like, brotherly.
Yeah,
it's like
yeah,
I know you, like the implied is like, I know you can do better than that.
Yeah.
He doesn't always say it. Like he said it the first couple of times, and then afterwards he's like, guys, I don't have time for this. Just do it again. I have demo versions of these songs that I feel like most people would be kind of surprised at, like how not finished they feel.
Yeah.
I don't want to say not great.
I mean, it's a demo.
I think they were still good, but like
the potential they had.
Yeah. Where like he took it and elevated it in a way that like I hadn't even thought that they could be. Like I re-fell in love with songs that I'd written years ago.
That's cool.
Because of little touches where he was like, hey, like play this chord voicing in this position instead of that position, because it'll blend better with the other guitar, and then do it in a different place on this one. So when it comes together, it locks in. And that breakdown part in Wake was one.
Oh, yeah.
That we got done with it. And you have those moments when you're in the studio where you're like, yo, that was it.
Yeah.
There were so many of those
Cash the check.
for all of these songs, and most of it was because of his like direction and just the way he thinks about things.
Yeah. No, that's
shout out Dave.
That's super fucking cool.
Uncle Dave.
I love
that, man.
Yeah, to have the right, and again, like you're talking about finding the right people, find honest people or whatever. To have on your team or your side or whatever that is going to help develop like the sound into, again, one that you fall in love with.
Right.
Again, like you said, like you wrote some of those super early on, and then finding new love for them like later on because of a collaborative effort.
Right.
Is super cool. It's super cool, and you realize like most of the songs you're listening to are like that. You know what I mean? Like you're already in a band itself, which is a collaborative effort in itself, but adding even more like players to that mesh well, that they're able to push and create some new sounds that you again weren't even trying to do, and you realize that your song like had more potential than it can. I think a lot of the songs we listen to are like that. We just don't see it on the surface, I guess, or whatever. So so people like assume like, no, it's just one person or just like the
one
people in
take.
that band. Yeah,
one opportunity comes in a lifetime. Sorry,
going over there. Put the hood.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but yeah, I think the songs and like the EP itself, like all of that reflects like, again, a nice team build-up. Everything kind of flows together, and it just, again, I think it does what it was, what you sought out for it to do, and it's to create those like emotional responses and like these connections with people like out at shows or people who are listening at home. And I'm honestly like hearing that you're already working on the next phase is exciting as fuck. Like that's super cool. Like I'm super excited. But anything else you guys have coming out? I mean, you said maybe February for
for the next single. We're gonna have another couple videos come out, and then out once the recording's done. I mean, we're really trying hard to play out more, but out like kind of use DFW as like a hub, but go out and play out new markets and things. So, I think towards the end of the year, the goal is to maybe do like 1 or 2 weeks out. Like we've had a bunch of people across the country reach out when TikTok was still working.
Too soon, man.
R.I.P.
Too soon.
It's today.
Literally today.
It's literally today.
Mark this as a history.
Yeah.
The history of TikTok's death was today.
Yeah. It's. I mean, our reach through TikTok was insane. We grew so much in such a short period of time just because of the way the platform operated, and we had so many people reach out that are like in Philly and Boston, Arizona, like all these places that were like, we've never done, like how is this collection of people finding us? But so we've been talking with a few people about trying to like get out and make all that work, and
this man's been like creating Google Maps routes and trying to figure out the best thing.
Yeah, which, by the way, mad respect to booking agents.
I've heard people that's the fucking nightmare part.
It
just thinks of like traveling.
It's so upsetting. I mean, like the sweet spot is you don't want to have to travel more than like 5 hours between dates. Going out west, that's relatively easy. Going out east from where we are to hit markets that like have shown any level of indication that they would be good for us.
It's like 12 hours for the first.
Not great.
Right? Yeah,
like
it's bad.
It's like when you leave here, like, you've got Oklahoma City, Little Rock, Shreveport, and there's a couple other cities in in Louisiana. But like after that, then like all roads lead to Nashville or Atlanta. And yeah, like they're just beat down drives. And I've done it with my other band before, and it's just, I'm not looking forward to the logistics of it, but I am like simultaneously super stoked to go play new places and and meet all of these people that on the internet have been like, you gotta come, like we gotta throw a house show, like we gotta do this, we gotta do that. I'm like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna figure it out.
We'll figure it out.
Connections like all over. I mean, TikTok was really good for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Wow, saying was already.
Oh no, we're gonna stay positive. It's gonna come back.
It's gonna come back.
We're not that broken as a country. It'll be fine.
We're not that broken. Oh God.
But yeah, like I feel like people are very responsive on that. Like to connect with like band. Like if you found, because I found a shit. Like I had to go through mine and like write down all the bands that I found that I didn't get a chance to like even like really listen to.
Like before it went down.
Yeah. I was like, I went through and I'm just like, all right, write it, make a list, and it literally. Kid you not, it went down while I was doing that.
Oh no!
Like it literally was like, it can't reach it anymore, and I'm like, But I was like, I have a giant list that I'm gonna get through. But
shout out to the bands that didn't make the list.
Yeah, they didn't make the list. We'll find. I'll find if it's meant to be. I'll find you. I swear, I'll find you. But yeah, I think people are very receptive to connecting that way. But yeah, making those. Out of town gigs, even just like a few little like runs, but outside of your market and doing the same thing you're doing here out there, you find again there's more people that are feeling the same way here as over there. And then once you make like a few, go to a town, make 2, 3 like people that really love you, that shit will bring like even more. Like that's the word of mouth is like better. Like I always talk about that where if somebody that I know recommends me like a band, then like I take that with a little bit like more intent. I'm like, I'm gonna actually like pay attention and listen to this band because they know what I like, so they're sending me something. Yeah. So same thing, like someone sees you like out of town and like tells their friend you need to see this band. It's more trust in that when like again because the like online is really saturated. It's kind of hard to just like a band pops up like I'm gonna stick to it. But I think those in-person connections are going to help. But I'm excited for y'all to tour. I can't wait to see that.
I think that's something that I've been like pleasantly surprised about too. And I don't know if you've noticed this, but like we went so long where the internet was the only place to discover an artist. Mm-hmm. And with Set Adrift in particular, I've noticed that playing live is more imperative now than it was probably
absolutely
at any point in the last 15 years that I've been doing music. Mm-hmm. Almost other outside of TikTok, like if TikTok is our largest like growth, metric parameter or whatever, playing shows is the other one. And it's like old school, just you play a show, you make a fan, they tell 6 people. And for years, I feel like it wasn't like that.
Well, Florida is a bad representation of that.
That's true.
Where like I give credit to Dallas, the Dallas scene here, or the DFW scene in whole. Is just really good about not just only supporting the live scene here, but like they just really love music here, and that's been, I will say, one of our greatest strengths is not only does the live performance really work for us, but like I don't know, like I've always seen a bump in our numbers immediately after our shows,
and I don't know if we could have done it in Florida. Like
no.
I not trying to like hate, except I am.
Get better, Florida.
Yeah, you've got to do better. We literally had to leave to get this to work.
10 years over there, nothing.
Because Florida, at least in our experience, ended up just kind of being an echo chamber where like nobody ever really left. Like it never got out of the gate. It just it stayed.
Were we just not good?
It couldn't have been that. No. I'm never the problem.
Our music says otherwise.
Oh.
No.
But yeah, you're out and you're doing cool shit now. And I think, again, more and more people, like you're saying, like recognize it. I'm definitely one of those that like your name gets brought up quite a bit whenever people like ask for like bands from around here that I've seen like grow. Like, so that's one that like
that's cool.
Really doesn't
that's
like
really
literally
cool.
I think the first podcast we had like I kind of kept count where like it was just like a NoiseROT one and we like I think we're talking about y'all like every other like 10 minutes. It was
what?
Like, it was just like brought up.
I've not seen this episode.
It was just like, oh yeah, said like I was like, oh the intro song. He's like, oh yeah, Set Adrift, and then like y'all did like the Rotted Root session too. So like brought up that I was like, dude, like yeah, that's kind of how we are. Like if we see people like that are fucking cool and like dope, like we want to help as much as we can. Like it's like again, like you're really good and more people should know. about y'all. But I'm excited as fuck. Again, new music, maybe possible outdoor. Some of y'all outside of Texas might get to see Set of Drift, so that'd be fucking dope. But yeah, thank you guys for coming on the podcast. I really do appreciate it. And yeah, if there's anything you guys need from us, just let us know. And we're always definitely open and happy to help, man.
I appreciate that so much. Thank you so much for having us.
But thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. This has been episode 128 with Set Adrift. We will see you next time.
I don't wanna be alone tonight. Raving touch on the